Hello, I will be showing off my WAMP architecture. WAMP stands for Windows, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. I'll be running my WAMP through XAMPP, and as you can see, I already have Apache and MySQL started. Apache is a web server and MySQL is database. With both of those running, I'm able to access my database on my own server that I just turned my computer into. My database is called Kyle, and I have a table in my database called My Table. My table has 4 columns in it. One is called CountPK, that counts each instance of a user, first name, which holds the user's first name, MI, which stands for middle initial, and last, which stands for last name, that holds the user's last name. The first page I'll be showing is names input. This is where the user will input their name. As you can see, I've already entered my first name, my last name, and my first name, my middle initial, my last name. When I hit submit, it's going to send this information into my stored names PHP file, and then it's going to tell the user that it was successfully able to store the following name, my name. When I click up here, this is going to be able to show you that I have my name already in here. Now let's look at the code. My first PHP file is names input, which is what the first page was. This page. This page, like I said, allows the users to input their first name, their middle initial, and their last name, which is this paragraph in HTML language right here. The next thing is the input type. When it's text, that means it's just going to display these words right here in bold, which corresponds with these words right here. Each text box has a label, and each label corresponds with each part of the user's name. I have this set up as a form type, meaning when the user input this, it's going to save all their information into a form, and it's going to send it to store names. The reason why I save the user's input is because it's going to upload it to my database called Kyle right here. First thing it's going to do is to make sure the user input their first name, their middle initial, and their last name, and if it didn't, a message will appear to tell the user to input their first name, middle initial, and last name. Next, it's going to try to connect to my database. My database is located at localhost. The username to access my database is called root, and there is no password by default. If it's unable to connect to that database, an error message will print telling the user that it was unable to connect to that database server. Once successful, connected to the server, it's going to look for my database called Kyle. Next, it's going to look for my table called My Table. It's then going to break down the user's input. It's going to take the first name text box and put that into a variable called first name, and it's going to do the same thing with last name and middle initial with their corresponding inputs from the previous page, the names input page. Next is going to break down that information and input it into my table under first name, middle initial, and last name in that order, as you can tell by this. It's then going to get ready to query that, meaning it's going to have it next to go into my database. Once it's successful, it's going to print the message that we saw earlier saying the following has been added into the database. As before, it's going to continue to try to connect to my database when I click on show name with the same information. It's then going to access the table in my database, and one at a time it's going to get the count, it's going to get the first name, the middle initial, and the last name, and it's going to print that onto the table that we saw earlier. I also have on my database the ability to delete something that was entered. As you can see, the last thing I inputted was index number 4. If I hit enter into my record to delete box, I'm able to delete that input. And as you see, my going PHP file is going to appear, and as you can see, index number 4 is no longer there. My delete code is similar to my show name. It's going to access my database again. It's going to find the database Kyle, and it's going to go into my table, which is a table in my database. From there, it's going to find the index that I told it to find. In our example, it was index 4, and it's going to search through my whole table till it finds index 4. Once it finds index 4, it's going to, just like before, submit it to a form. The form is then going to go to the gone PHP. Once gone PHP receives that, it's going to connect to the database again, connect to the Kyle database, and connect to my table. It's going to then search through my table, and once it finds the record that we told it to find with delete record, it's going to delete that record, which is what this is telling, and then it's going to reprint my table one at a time without the record that it deleted. And that's how we get this table. As you can see, I'm able to navigate through each one of the pages that I just discussed by clicking the tables at the top. I'm able to add a name again. I'm able to delete a record, and I'm able to show the current names in my database. And that is thanks to this simple code, which allows it to make a link to each one of the pages: the names input, the delete record, and the show names. As you can see, from the front end, the user will see this, but from the back end on my server, the user is able to see. The coder who's working on the server is able to see the same thing, but from the server side. Facebook is one of the biggest real-world examples of a database, because everything you do on Facebook is stored in a database. Everything from your pictures to your statuses to videos and many of the other things that you upload are stored in a big database.